Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy, y'all. red.olaughlin. We're on Talking Heads today, and we're beginning a new series. We just finished up one on lifestyles and longevity. And part of what we learned in there is going to be super critical in this next topic, which is cancer, causes and options. As you're looking at me right now on the screen, you can probably tell it looks like I got sunburned very badly, particularly on my nose. It looks like my skin is peeling. It really is peeling. And part of the problem on that is that I'm going through a preventive chemotherapy. It's a fluorouracil drug, and you just rub it on the skin wherever and if there's fast growing precancerous cells, it's going to cause them to die. It's going to cause them to erupt. And as such, you end up with a lot of redness where things are larger. You end up with little scabs and things. But it's a preventive for skin cancer. I've been doing this since probably the 80s, mid 80s. This is the third time I've done my face. And it's been about 25 years since the last time that I've actually treated my face area as such. So let me get my slides set up here. And, okay. Disclaimer. I'm not anything dealing with the medical industry, pharmaceutical industry. I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat a symptom, and you'll always be treating symptoms. However, I love chemistry. I fell in love with it many, many, many years ago. I use it on a daily basis. I'm using it on my face. I stopped using the particular chemo drug last Sunday. After 7 days, probably by this Sunday, everything should be gone except for maybe a little redness. But I am looking for ways that we can prevent disease. If you understand what the cause of a disease is, then this is one of the preventions. So I try to provide that information out initially as awareness, partially as education. So this thing today about cancer, what are the causes and options? Well, we'll get into that in a lot of detail. But right now, just say there's several things that cancer, along with other diseases, it's something that happens that we hear about. Sometimes it happens to us. It happened to my wife. She had breast cancer about 10 years ago, maybe not quite 10, but we have friends and family. We lost a family member not that long ago to cancer. We got a call recently. Another related family member just found out that he has cancer. We hear people in the church, well, where's that person? Oh, didn't you know he died of cancer? It's a number of things that it's just constantly there. I've had other good friends of mine that all of a sudden they're saying, I can't do them. I can't swallow. And have you seen a doctor? No. But we have things that we do every day. We just talked about in the last 6 sessions, lifestyle choices. These are the things we do every day without even thinking about them. We sleep, we get stressed out, we exercise or not, we eat certain foods. There's certain things we do every day. Those things are called lifestyle choices. And when we do them, they have an effect on our body, some way, shape, or form, mostly with turning good genes on or bad genes off. But as part of our overall psyche, our mindset, we have a belief system. And part of that belief system is our expectations. Let's say that your great-grandfather died at 40 years of age because of a stroke. And then your grandfather died at 45 years of age because of a stroke. And then your dad died at 48 years of age because of a stroke. You think, yeah, strokes are my family. That's what I expect. I'm not going to live to 50. Those expectations do have a major effect. And that same thing with cancer. We have people who are willing to have a double mastectomy because they have a gene and they think that because somebody else in the family had it, they're going to prevent it from happening. But our expectations also apply to our feelings about hospitals and doctors. Somebody will come to you with the problem. Well, have you seen your doctor? No. Don't you think you should? Whatever that is, they just don't want to go to the hospital. They just don't want to go to their doctor. I don't know whether it's an insurance issue. The people I know, it might have been, but in reality, it's probably not. Financial stability, there might be some issues there. I know with a couple of people, I know that was an issue. And then you have, who do you trust? If you look at things out there, and I do a lot of research, especially for this particular program today and in the subsequent ones. And I go to the primary doctors and the people that I get information from on a regular basis. I trust them because I look at the way the information is presented, the references they have. When I pull up an article on, say, Life Extension magazine, and I turn over and there's 100, 150 references of things that have happened all over various medical institutions and research facilities, I have fair degree of reliability. That information is good. So when it comes to cancer, am I looking at something that is really reliable? And if the study is based on questionnaires, the reliability, it just goes down because a questionnaire does not cover the same level as a clinical study. It boils down to, in reality, what am I willing to do? I watched a very long video last night. A guy, Frenchman, had found out that he had prostate cancer, very high PSA reading, 57, I think. And he went to his doctor and they said, 3 months, 6 months, that's it. Went to another doctor, same thing, another doctor, same thing. And he wasn't willing to live. He wasn't willing to do that. He started researching. He started doing a lot of things. A long story short, many years after his 3 months, 6 months prognostication, he's free of cancer. It was stage 4 prostate cancer, by the way, by the time they got in there and started doing biopsies. Just because you have a stage 4 something or other does not necessarily mean it's a death sentence. But he had to do some things that many of us are unwilling to do. One of the things he did was fast. And I'm talking about some extended fasts, much more so than he mentioned a woman that had a stage 4 situation. She fasted for 25 days. That's almost unreasonable. But when they did an autopsy, the cancer was gone. The cancer was starved out. But she died of nutritional issues. So you have to factor in the balance between, okay, I'm going to starve this cancer out, but I can't starve myself out where I'm eating my own muscles and organs. So a lot of things there. So why don't we go ahead and get started on our topic today, cancer. I'm going to talk about how does it develop a little bit, some of the causes and risk factors. What are some of the symptoms? Our first line of defense, our immune system. And then I want to get into where do things really get started at. I do my research at the cellular level in the body. And when we get down to the cellular level, where for cancer, we're going to actually have to get inside the cell in order to find out what is really happening. So if you were just to type into Google and say, what's the causes of cancer? Well, they're going to come down and you're going to hear a lot of things. Most of the time, it's going to be a chronic low-level cellular inflammation. Chronic is the key word. It doesn't go away. It's there for a long time. We hear about smoking. Even secondhand smoke can cause cancer. Alcohol, more of an abuse than anything else. Obesity. Well, is it the obesity that's causing the problem, or is it the lifestyle that led to the obesity? I'm seeing a lot more now where people are starting to say, well, the obesity is there and it kind of contributes, but the same lifestyle that got you to that extra 100 pounds being overweight, that is probably more critical than the actual having that extra 100 pounds on you. There are a lot of things that extra fat does. It's almost like an extra organ in the body that has its own function, its own life and everything. Omega-6, we're talking about plant and seed oils, canola oil, safflower oil, those kinds of things. They're essential fatty acids. We need them, but we don't need as many as is in the typical American diet. And so if you end up getting a ratio of your omega-6 to omega-3, your salmon and fish oil kind of things, it should be 1 to 1. But when you start getting outside of the range of 4 to 1, omega-6 to omega-3, it becomes inflammatory. But you look at the standard American diet, it may be 20 to 1, maybe 40 to 1 or more, depending on how many fried foods and processed foods you're eating. And so you end up with a situation that your lifestyle says, I'm eating this all the time. I keep a very high inflammation level. I'm not even aware of it. And that high inflammatory level inside the body creates problems. Stress, it's not what happens to us. It's, again, what we hang on to. We've talked about that a number of times. But stress is the genesis of 70, 75, 80% of all doctor's visits in one way, shape, or form. Radiation, we think of radiation, I'm exposed to something. But you're sitting in a room watching TV on the computer. You got a cell phone up to your ear. You have electromagnetic force around you. Anytime you turn the light on, you're having electromagnetic field being generated by all the wires in the room. Everything that's plugged in, that's turned on, you have electromagnetic field. Lots and lots and lots of things are generating radiation around you. And where's the most exposure? Right there in the brain. Speaking of exposure, sun. We hear that's kind of a double-edged sword. We really need the sun in so many ways. We need the infrared radiation. We need the ultraviolet radiation. We're going to get into a little bit of that down the road, but right now, again, it's cause. It's something that over time, you get a really bad sunburn as a kid, it may not show up for 40 years later. Infections and their medications can be causes of cancer. Genetics, definitely several issues there that they can be. A gene can be turned on or turned off with your lifestyle choices. And if you turn the wrong one on, it might be a factor in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10%, but plus or minus about 5%. Hormone, nutritional imbalance, definitely going to cause a problem. Toxins, big issue there. We get a lot of toxins in our personal care products and the foods we eat. Just getting older, a lot of our body systems are not as prolific and effective as they were earlier. And our diet, big time diet. Okay. How about some of the things we don't think about so much, but are really in there? And this is following up a little bit, but the chronic, this is something that's happening all the time. Okay, how do you know you have chronic inflammation at the cellular level? Well, you don't unless you get a test. The easiest way to tell is a C-reactive protein. C is the letter C, chronic. C-reactive protein is a manifestation of when you have inflammation in the body. The more inflammation you have, the higher the level of C-reactive protein on the test will be. It's a simple blood test, rather inexpensive. But you get that test and it'll tell you right away that you have a lot of stress or no stress. Most of the time I get the test, it's not even measurable. It's down in the less than 0.5. I just got one, I think it was 2.3, probably the highest one I've had in a long time. But it's something that I get on a regular basis. I keep track of it. It's something that I add to my doctor's blood tests on every annual year basis. But if you know what your inflammation is high, then you have something to start looking for. Stress happens in so many different ways. We stress our bodies by a number of different things. EMF, we just talked about that. Sleep, we don't think about sleep being a cause of anything, but if you're not allowing your body to fully heal on a daily basis, it becomes a major problem. Depression, loneliness, something we don't think about as being a cause of something, but loneliness is a cause of Alzheimer's, it's a cause of cancer, it's a cause of a lot of things. So when you add in that stress, the depression, loneliness, they all kind of compound on top of each other. What are some cancer warnings? And let's say that I'm concerned, do I have a problem or not? One of the biggest, absolute biggest, is unexplained weight loss. You go to the doctors and you're 20 pounds less than you were last year. That's going to be a red flag. First thing he's going to ask you, have you been doing something to lose weight? And if you say, yes, I'm on a diet, I've done this, I'm exercising, you can see him kind of relax a little bit. But if you say no, then he is going to go, he or she should go hyperactive, because that is a big red flag that something's going on. Again, a fever, fatigue that doesn't go away, a cough that doesn't go away. You have digestive problems that just can't be solved no matter what you're doing. They're there. You have a pain, you have heartburn, you have something that just, no matter what you do, it will not go away. Skin changes, something in a rash, whatever it may happen to be, a change in your bladder or your bowel habits, any kind of unusual bleeding or, again, chronic bloating, it just won't go away, discharges. These are all symptom signs that you have a problem. It may be cancer, it may be something else, but you really need to see somebody about it. Self-treat for some items. If the self-treat, give yourself 10 days. If it's not better in 10 days, you need to see someone, because it's either going to get better, it's going to stay the same, or it's going to get worse. Well, if it stays the same or gets worse, you need to see someone. Our immune system. This was talked about a lot during COVID. It's our first line of defense. Why did some people get COVID and others not? Well, our immune system prevents that from happening. I try to keep mine as high as possible. I came down with COVID twice, so not an absolute guarantee, because sometimes our immune system's here, but there's some days it's down here. If we happen to run into the wrong people or the wrong thing at the wrong time, you can come down with anything. But 70%, 80% in some cases, depending on which you read, of our immune system is in our gut. And so as we're going through our normal digestive process, the foods get into our, out of our stomach, get into our intestines. It's being filtered through our immune system as it goes. You have a semi-permeable membrane as the nutrients go through the stomach, through the intestinal lining to get into the bloodstream in order to get to our organs and other places in our bodies. Well, as that semi-permeable membrane allows things to pass through, the immune system is there in order to be effective on the stuff that we're eating, trying to keep the bad stuff out. But if your gut biome is destroyed because of a number of things, and it's amazing how many things in there can destroy it, then your immune system is going to be challenged a little bit. We get older, our immune system goes down a little bit. Any kind of chronic disease, persistent disease that we have, a cough, a cold, something that just won't go away, those things create problems. Malnutrition, big issue. If we're deficient in any kind of nutrient, we're probably going to be deficient in a hormone, because that's an issue there. Sometimes we take medicines that just create antibiotics. If you're taking an antibiotic, it destroys your gut. It's going to affect your immune system. If you're taking an antibiotic, you should be taking a probiotic and a prebiotic at some point in time. So if your doctor recommends an antibiotic, you need to talk to your doctor, or you need to talk to your pharmacist about what kind of probiotics and what kind of prebiotics should you be taking, and when should you take them in the process of taking your antibiotics. Very critical. How do you know your immune system is a bit weakened? Well, again, something that lasts a long time. In this particular case, let's say you have a sore throat or you have a cough, and it's just, you can't get rid of that cough. The sore throat comes and goes, comes and goes. If the immune system's working, the cough is going to go away, the sore throat's going to go away. Those things are fixed because the immune system's there. Some people have a tendency, the lights hurt their eyes, and that's a symptom of a weakened immune system. Sometimes you end up with a rash. I put something on it, it's not going away. Okay, your immune system's not taking care of that skin condition. Sometimes you're sitting down and you get chilled. Nobody else is feeling chilled. Sometimes you kind of just don't feel right. You get a little bit of shakes. Possibly your immune system is the cause. High temperatures. Let's say you're running. You do okay, I've got a fever. Well, it's only 100. It's not something I need to worry about. It's not 103. But I can't get rid of that temperature. It's just staying there all the time. So that's an indication the body is fighting something. The immune system should have wiped it out in a couple, 3 days. But a week, 10 days later, you're still having that. There's a problem. If you have brain fog, you're continually fatigued, you're drowsy, just don't feel right. Again, the immune system should have taken care of whatever the cause of that brain fog, drowsiness, fatigue was. And if you're still fatigued after 2 weeks and you haven't figured out what it was, a possibility could be a weakened immune system. And there's just so many things out there. Just Google immune system for how to improve. Go to YouTube. Lots of things out there say you do this and it's going to improve. Antibiotics, we just talked about that. It absolutely destroys your gut. So there's an issue there with that. Let's get down to the cellular level. Inside the cell, we have mitochondria. Mitochondria is the main workhorse in their cellular operations. It generates ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That is where we get the energy. If we didn't have that, we'd be literally dead because nothing in the body would be working. It's the source of energy for what we think, what we do, our breathing, our digestion, everything in our body that we do, every system that's operating requires energy. That energy typically comes from glucose. We eat some kind of sugar, refined sugar, carbohydrate that causes insulin response. That insulin gets in. Anyway, we end up with glucose as being the primary source of energy in the body. Well, the mitochondria is the one that creates that, takes that glucose and converts it into a lactate. And as part of this process, generates the adenosine triphosphate. That's the power that operates everything. We need a lot of calcium. We need it everywhere in our body. And so in order to maintain a constant flow, homeostasis, the mitochondria controls that level of calcium. We have calcium coming in and going out of the bones, coming in and going out of our heart, coming in and going out of our bloodstream. Calcium needs a place to where the reservoir is there, and it deals it out when you need it. Our innate immunity is regulated by our mitochondria. What's innate immunity? It's the immunity you were born with. Whatever you got from your parents, whatever they had that was part of their immune system, you picked up, you got. That's what you have in that cell until you start having other issues with diseases and other things where your new immune system starts to pick it up and become adapted to the reality of the world you're in. Your innate immune system, what you were born with, is regulated by your mitochondria. Cell death. We talked about this with senolytics last week. When the cell gets old, it's supposed to kill itself. It's supposed to commit suicide. It's called apoptosis. It's programmed that way. But when you get a cancer cell, somebody's reprogrammed the cell. It doesn't die anymore. Well, sometimes our old cells, when it gets to the end of our cellular life, the last little bit of telomere that separates off, it sends a message saying, okay, flip the switch, you're dead. But the communication doesn't get there. The cell stays alive. And now you have a cell that's in senescence. It's an old cell, a zombie cell, something that's going to create health problems, something that can lead to a lot of different kinds of diseases. But when you end up with apoptosis, that doesn't happen because something at the mitochondrial level causes a shift in that programming. The cell doesn't die. And if it becomes a cancer cell, now it's got an immortal life because it doesn't have any program to kill itself. And we could be talking a lot about that down the road. Stem cell regulation. In other words, we have stem cells that are created, and part of our mitochondrial function is to regulate those stem cells. Now, if I want to keep my mitochondria healthy, I need balanced nutrition. I need everything that I can get there. Well, coenzyme Q10 is one of those molecules that's needed throughout the entire body, every single cell. It's needed because the mitochondria needs it. Coenzyme Q10 is ubiquinone. You can buy it. If you find a bottle that says, here's the $10 bottle, here's the $30 bottle, I'm going to tell you right now, get the $30 bottle because it's not ubiquinone, it's ubiquinol. The ubiquinone has to be converted to ubiquinol in the body. And when you look at the bioavailability, how much of it actually gets into the bloodstream and to where it needs to go, it's not very much. But if you buy the ubiquinol, you actually get a lot more in the body, a lot more than you would be getting by taking 2 or 3 or 4 times the amount of the ubiquinol. So coenzyme Q10, ironically, when you're taking a statin drug for cholesterol, it shuts down the body's production of coenzyme Q10. So if you're on a statin drug, that should be something you talk to your doctor about supplementing because it's super critical at the mitochondrial level in your body. B vitamins, absolutely needed. Alpha lipoic acid. These are things that the mitochondria needs to do their job. L-carnitine and L-arginine. Arginine provides extra oxygen, the things that we need. And believe it or not, exercise. Even though they're cells, and even though these are inside the cells, the body responds to the kinds of exercise we're doing. So we need our strength, we need our endurance, we need resistance training, we need a lot of things in there to keep our cells, our mitochondria in our cells healthy. How How do you know when they're not healthy? Well, you usually end up with some kind of problem, a health issue. It could be cardiovascular disease. It could be cancer. We're talking about that. You may end up with obesity because the cell is not responding the way it's supposed to be. Diabetes, insulin resistance. These are all issues that the mitochondria is not able to do the job it's supposed to do. Digestive issues. A lot of problems with nerve or muscle deterioration. It starts out little, and then all of a sudden you start having a little bit more, a little bit more. We get a cancer. It's not one of those things that all of a sudden you open up and there's the size of an orange or a lemon. That thing has been growing. It started at the cell, 2 cells, 4 cells. It's microscopic. If you could find it, you'd be able to see it because it's so small. Even if you knew where to look, as it gets a little bit bigger, you might be able to find it or see it if you knew exactly where to look. But again, it's not affecting us. As it gets bigger, now it's something we should be able to see and find, but we don't test for that. You go into your annual physical, you don't get a cancer test because you're not looking. I get a C-reactive protein because I want to know if there's something in my body inflamed that I need to be looking somewhere else. But that thing continues to grow. Then all of a sudden it gets big enough where it's starting to create a problem. Now it goes to the doctor and says, hey, do you hear George just found out he had a cancer the size of a grapefruit? Well, how can you have something that big growing inside if you never know about it? Oh, and he only has 6 months to live. We have these things that happen, and these little issues, they're clues, but we need to take advantage of that clue and do something about it. Okay, so if I had to go down and do my research, where am I looking? Well, right now I'm looking at the mitochondria, because if I know that my cell is going to have a mutation, and I want to know, well, what caused that mutation? Well, we always hear it's inflammation, it's the free radical damage. Well, that free radical damage affects a lot of things, and our immune system is there to fix it. So that I have damage to my DNA, immune system fixes that damage. Okay, more damage, fixes it again, more damage. In other words, my immune system's keeping me good. But what happens if my mitochondria starts to shift? I'm having now a problem. It's not what's there, it's the environment that our body is in. It doesn't have the ability to respond properly. So when I start looking at the metabolism of how a cancer cell actually is created and grows, I have to go down to what happens, what's the difference between a cancer cell and a normal cell? Well, our normal cells take glucose and converts it to lactate. And this is in an oxygen environment. So I have oxygen flowing through my system. That's normal. That's every day. That's what's there. But cancer cells don't work. They generally don't work in an oxygen environment. Now, they need the blood vessel supply for other nutrients and things, but they convert the glucose to lactate. They're also using a lot more glucose. If there was a meter on how much glucose is being used, and you're sitting there and the normal cell is pegged over here, let's do it this way so it's a normal meter. So I'm back here toward the zero end of things. I look at a cancer cell and it's pegged way over here on the amount of glucose it's using. So that's a hint. Well, this guy called Warburg, Warburg, let me pull this up here. Dr. Otto Warburg, 1924, won a Nobel Prize for his assessment of anaerobic glycolysis. That's basically a cancer cell creating from glucose to lactate without oxygen in an anaerobic environment. And he was able to, he called it cellular respiration back then in the 1920s. And there was people who came past him and said, well, how about this? And so there's several other things in there. And this thing has just gone on. It's amazing, but you're looking at the cancer cell basically gets reprogrammed because the mitochondria are having a dysfunctional episode. There's something going wrong because that cell is not healthy. So it reprograms that cell from being a normal cell to being a cancer cell. The most recent studies on Dr. Warburg, they call it the Warburg effect. Since about 100 years ago, it's been over 20,000 or almost 20,000 articles written. The thing that they call Warburg, 18,000 on that one. Adenosine triphosphate and Warburg, 17,000. More recently, biosynthesis and reactive oxygen effect there's 7,000 each on those. And here, just in the last several years, acidification, acetylation affect 2,500 each. So Dr. Warburg came up with this thing 100 years ago, and it's continuing to expand because there's so much information there. Well, is this really causing that? And so people have gone in and looked and said, well, yeah, that's starting to make a lot of sense. If you're having problems at the cellular level, the cancer cells need glucose and the oxygen through a fermentation process, not something that we typically see in the body. And he says that if you want to cure cancer, you have to deprive both the glucose source and the energy that's needed in that function in order to stop it. And so I think that was a good place to leave it for today, because we're going to pick this up again in about 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. And we're going to talk about more. Well, how does this actually happen, and what can you do about it? What is the lifestyle of a cancer cell? What can we do to change that? And we're getting in the nitty gritty of what is going on in the world of cancer at the cellular level, and how it divides and conquers, and will make your life miserable down the road. So let me go ahead and get here toward the last slide. Next week, we're going to talk about fasting, a couple deals with insulin and cortisol and our gut health. At least that's the plan I have right now. And quickly speaking, my latest book out just the last month, Understanding the Causes of Alzheimer's Disease, go into several of those. Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging, talk about 2 primary causes of aging and what you can do to accelerate or decelerate the aging process. The Joy of Ageless Health talks about the causes of disease and what you can do about it. And no matter what you can do, it looks deeply into the subconscious mind of what you can do to really have some control over the things you do in life. And with that, I'm going to call an end to today's talk on cancer, causes, and options. And I will see you again in 2 weeks on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. You all have a great time. Bye now.